My name is Amaris Stroud. I am 30 years old. I never thought I would feel this happy in my life, not until this one very special night. If you had paused the moment right before my sister Safira walked in, you might have thought you were watching a movie. One of those moments where everything works out perfectly for the main character, where the music swells and everyone looks happy and peaceful. That was my wedding night. But before I continue, hit the subscribe button and tell me where you're watching this from, and what time of day is it. The ceremony went beautifully. Every little detail was perfect. The flowers smelled sweet, soft lights hung from the ceiling, and the tables were decorated like they were part of a fairy tale. People were smiling, but not just normal polite smiles. They were glowing, happy in a way you could almost feel in your chest. And Cale, my husband, looked at me like I was the only person in the entire room. Our first dance went just as we had imagined it. Even my usually nervous mind calmed down enough for me to enjoy it. For the first time in many, many years, I felt exactly where I was supposed to be. I felt safe. I felt loved. And then Safira arrived. She was late and everyone noticed immediately. She walked into the room like she owned it, like she was on a runway at a fashion show. Head high, hair perfect, small smirk at the corner of her mouth. Her entrance would have been dramatic even without her dress, but the dress, oh the dress, was what made everyone gasp. She wore real white. Not off-white. Not cream. Not champagne. Not blush. Just plain, pure white, full-length, fitted perfectly, sparkling in the soft lights of the room like it was meant to show off. People stared. Their faces changed slowly one by one. One of Cale's uncles even leaned over and whispered to me, "Is this some kind of joke?" It wasn't a joke. Safira didn't care about anyone else. She walked in like the whole night belonged to her. She didn't say a word at first, but somehow she sucked half the air out of the room. Guests couldn't help glancing between her and me, waiting to see what I would do. But I did nothing. I felt Cale's hand tighten gently around mine. I caught his eyes and I saw the question there. What should we do? And then I saw the answer in his eyes too. He looked at Safira once, then smiled at me as if she didn't even exist. That should have made me cry right then and there, but I swallowed it down. Cale deserved a peaceful wedding. He had spent years holding me together quietly while I tried to hold everyone else together loudly. I made a choice at that moment. I would not let Safira ruin this day for him. I swallowed all the embarrassment, all the anger, all the sudden urge to march across the room and demand to know what she was thinking. I shoved it down deep behind my ribs and put on a smile. I laughed when I was supposed to laugh. I danced when the DJ called us to the floor. I thanked the guests for coming. I posed for photos. I cut the cake. I made speeches. I hugged people I barely knew. I acted gracefully because Cale deserved that version of me on our wedding day. But inside, everything felt like I was walking on broken glass. I could feel the tension in the room. I noticed how people's eyes flicked from Safira's white dress to me, wondering what I would do. I could hear whispers. Some people pretended not to notice. Others lingered a little too long on, "You look beautiful," as if they were apologizing silently for what Safira had done. Safira, for her part, acted like she belonged there. She sat at her table, drank, laughed, and acted like she hadn't just walked into her sister's wedding wearing a white gown. She didn't act guilty or embarrassed. She acted proud, like she had just done something brilliant. We got through dinner. We got through the toast. We made it through the parent dances. We even got through that part of the night when people take off their shoes and start dancing more freely. Guests checked on me quietly. "Are you okay?" they would whisper. "Do you want me to say something?" I shook my head every time. I would not give Safira the satisfaction of a scene. For a while it felt like maybe we had managed to get through it. My shoulders relaxed a little. The music grew louder. People laughed more. The lights seemed warmer. I watched Cale laugh with his friends and thought maybe we had outrun the tension Safira had brought in. Then she stood up. She was at a table near the dance floor, holding a big round wine glass filled with dark red wine. The DJ had just lowered the music, the kind of quiet moment where people sometimes clink glasses and give small speeches. For a second I thought maybe she would do something nice. Maybe she would make a little toast, say she was proud of me, and everything would be fine. I was wrong. She turned to Cale, not to me, and said, "Here's to the family fraud in white." Her voice cut through the room like a knife. People froze for a moment, not quite believing she had said it. And then suddenly she threw the wine. Not at Cale. At me. I didn't have time to move. The wine hit my dress full force, cold and sticky, running down the front of my dress like a slow-motion red stain. It soaked the lace, spreading down toward the floor in ugly, jagged shapes. Someone nearby laughed nervously, then stopped when they realized it wasn't a joke. The room went completely silent. One of Kale's cousins dropped her glass. It shattered with a sharp, loud crack against the floor. I didn't look down. I didn't need to. I could feel the wet stain, the cold liquid, and the eyes of everyone on me. My mother reacted next. She didn't rush to me, she rushed to Saphira. She grabbed her by the arm and pulled her half behind her like a mother grabbing a misbehaving child. She hissed at Saphira loud enough for at least 3 tables to hear. Of course she meant it. Saphira never does anything halfway. When she is hurt, she drags everyone into misery until she feels better herself. Kale stepped toward me, his face full of anger and concern. "Kem," he said. I held up a hand, a tiny, calm gesture. My voice was calm too. "I'm fine," I said. "I'll go change." I didn't look at Saphira or Mom. I walked into the quiet of the bridal suite. The door closed behind me with a soft, muffled thud, like the room itself was sighing. For a few seconds I just stared at myself in the mirror. White ruined by red. The dress, meant to be the happiest thing I had ever worn, was now ruined. A night meant for joy, now marked by a stain so familiar it almost made me laugh. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I took a deep breath. I stripped off the dress and slipped into the backup outfit I had packed just in case. I had imagined spilling champagne on my dress before, but never this. Never weaponized wine. When I stepped back into the reception, people noticed me. Some looked away, then looked back. I chose to act like nothing had happened. I smiled. I danced. I hugged Kale and whispered in his ear, "We're okay." He kissed my forehead. "We're more than okay," he said. "We're married." I held on to that. I let it be enough. But deep down, beneath the smiles and the dancing, a different part of me was wide awake. I made a decision that night. This would be the last time Saphira would humiliate me. After the last guest left, after the DJ packed up, after my parents disappeared with Saphira in tow, the venue was quiet. Kale fell asleep quickly that night, exhausted from the day and a little whiskey. He looked peaceful. I lay awake next to him, not feeling peaceful at all. I slipped out of bed and padded downstairs to the kitchen. I opened my laptop and sat at the counter. The house was quiet. The only light came from the glow of the screen. I logged into the shared bank account. The emergency account I had set up and funded, the account where my paycheck went to help Saphira with her life. Tuition, rent, car repairs, fees, random bills. Somehow they always became my responsibility. I stared at the balance. The number looked huge, like a monument to my inability to say no for 30 years. I went into the settings and froze the account. No warning. No explanation. Just one click. Done. I closed the laptop, poured a glass of water, and stood at the sink until my breathing slowed. Kale stirred in his sleep upstairs, but I knew he trusted me. For the first time in years, I made a financial decision that didn't involve saving Saphira. The next morning at 8:40 a.m. somewhere across town, or maybe already halfway to campus, Saphira got an email. Her final payment had failed. Her enrollment was withdrawn. At 8:41 a.m., my phone started ringing. It was my mother. I knew exactly how the conversation would go. How devastated Saphira was. How unusual this all was. How I had overreacted. But I let it ring once, twice, 3 times. On the 5th ring, a text appeared. "What did you do to your sister?" it said. I stared at it for a moment, then smiled a little. I answered with one word, nothing. Because for 30 years I had done everything. Freezing the account wasn't cruelty. It was the first time I had let Saphira feel the ground under her own feet. By 9 a.m. I had 6 missed calls, 3 voicemails, and 1 text accusing me of destroying Saphira's future. I didn't listen to the voicemails. I already knew how they would sound. My mother crying, voice pitched high, saying everything except, "We made a mistake." I stood at the kitchen counter with a mug of coffee, letting the phone ring again. Same number, same ringtone. I stared at it until it stopped. Kale came into the kitchen, hair messy, wearing pajama pants and a t-shirt. He kissed my cheek, grabbed a mug, and glanced at the phone. "You're not going to answer?" he asked. "Not yet," I said. He studied my face for a moment, then nodded. "Good." He didn't ask any more questions. He didn't need to. That was Kale. He trusted my instincts even when my own family didn't. And I realized something important. I had survived Saphira's chaos. I had survived her attempt to steal my day. I had survived her throwing wine on my dress. And I had survived the years of responsibility I had carried for her. This was just the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where I could say no, where I could protect myself and my happiness without guilt. And for the first time in a long time I felt the power of that choice. The phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Mom. It said, "Mom, what did you do to your sister?" I took a slow sip of coffee, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. I hadn't done anything. And that was true. For 30 years I had always helped my sister. I fixed her problems, covered for her mistakes and tried to make her life easier. I smoothed over her messes, made excuses for her and always tried to make sure she didn't get into trouble. This was the first time I didn't do anything. I had finally stopped. By lunchtime my dad finally messaged me. He didn't call me. He just sent a text. That alone told me how serious they thought this was. I typed back quickly, "Dad, Amaris, call me. This is serious." I sat down at the dining table. The flowers from yesterday were still in a vase. Their petals were curling, turning brown, and bruised from sitting out too long. The bright colors were starting to fade. I picked up my phone and dialed my dad's number. He answered on the first ring. "Amaris," he said without even saying hello first. "Do you understand what you've done?" "Good morning to you too," I said. "This is not the time for jokes," he snapped. "Saphira's enrollment has been withdrawn. They dropped her. They won't reopen it without payment. She's going to lose the entire semester, maybe the whole year." "I know," I said. There was a long silence. I could almost hear him thinking on the other end. "You're okay with that?" he asked. "Yes," I said simply. "You don't mean that," he said. "I do," I said. He sucked in a deep breath. "She has no way to fix this. The university doesn't care about family drama. They told your mother it's a system issue, not emotional. They just need payment. That's it." "Interesting," I said calmly. "They and I have that in common," he said, suddenly quieter. "Honey, this is too far. She was emotional. It was your wedding. People say things they don't mean," I said. "She threw wine on my wedding dress. She called me a fraud in front of my husband, in front of our families. That's not something you don't mean. That's articulation," he said sharply. He exhaled loudly. "So, this is about revenge." "No," I said. "If this was revenge, I would have done it years ago." Another silence stretched between us. Long and tense. "Saphira is your sister," he said finally. "We raised you to look out for each other." "You raised me," I corrected, "to look out for her." He didn't answer. When we hung up I felt calm. Not happy, not guilty, just clear. For the first time they were feeling what I had felt my whole life. What it was like when the safety net you've always depended on steps aside and stops catching you. That afternoon I opened my laptop. The shared bank account was frozen, but that wasn't the only place Saphira depended on me. I logged into the health insurance portal. 2 years ago, when Saphira's temporary job didn't give her benefits, I had quietly added her to my plan. I told myself it was just until she got on her feet. But she never did. Her name was still there. I hovered over it for a moment, not because I was unsure but because part of me wanted to mark this moment. Then I clicked remove. The system warned me that removing her would change the coverage. I clicked confirm. Next, I opened the student loan portal for loans in my name that weren't attached to my degree. When Saphira missed the grant deadline, she had called me crying. "I can't lose this, Cam. I'm finally trying," she had said. I had signed as a responsible party and set up automatic payments for her, promising to help just until she got stable. I navigated to the settings and canceled the autopay. Another warning appeared. Failure to pay could result in default. I let it sit for a few seconds like a caption under our entire relationship. Then I clicked confirm. No dramatics. No announcements. I just quietly closed one page after another, letting the structure of her life finally stand on its own weight. The next day Mom tried a different tactic. She texted me a photo of Saphira's university acceptance letter. The same one she had framed on the mantel last year, proudly showing anyone who visited about her baby girl making something of herself. "Mom, you were so proud of her then. How can you take that away now?" I stared at the image. What she didn't understand was that I wasn't the one taking anything away. I had given Saphira more chances than she had ever earned. I locked my phone without replying. That night I brushed my teeth next to Kale. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, and turned it toward me. It was a message from Mom. Mom, I didn't want to involve you, but I'm worried about Amaris. She's being controlling, punishing her sister. Please watch for that behavior. It can get worse. Kale snorted toothpaste foam and almost choked, laughing. Then he read the message out loud in a dramatic voice. Punishing her sister? I laughed too, but it died quickly. That was the moment I realized something very important. They weren't trying to get me to forgive Saphira. They were trying to shame me back into being the person I always was. The stable one, the fixer, the woman who handled everyone else's storms and quietly asked for scraps of gratitude. They wanted me back on script. But I wasn't going to step into that role anymore. And the moment they realized it, things began to break. I started with facts, not feelings. I called Saphira's university, something I had done dozens of times for her. The academic advisor recognized my name immediately. Amaris, is everything okay? She asked. Fine, I said, just confirming her enrollment status. There was a pause. Papers rustling, typing. Then she had been withdrawn. Payment deadline passed. Space was offered to another student. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. Campus housing was tied to active enrollment. She had 14 days to vacate. I thanked the advisor, hung up, and set my phone down. I didn't smile, didn't celebrate, didn't feel any victory. I just felt done. A few hours later, Saphira finally broke her silence. A single thumbs up emoji. No explanation, no apology, not even a real sentence. She was just signaling to me like she was telling a coworker that the meeting room had been booked. It would have been funny if it weren't so predictable. I didn't answer. The next morning, a voicemail came. Her voice was forced and too cheerful, too fast. Hey Cam, looks like the account froze. Maybe the bank flagged something. Can you just clear it up real quick? Clear it up? Like nothing had happened? Like she hadn't thrown red wine on my wedding dress 48 hours earlier? I said nothing. 2 days later, she called again. Saphira, they're telling me I have to move out by Friday. Seriously, you're going to let that happen? Yes. Yes, I was. Mom escalated next. She sent me a photo that was supposed to tug at my heart. Saphira was sitting on a friend's couch, curled up, surrounded by trash bags, holding her clothes and belongings. But I noticed something else. One of the boxes in the corner had my handwriting, the same neat script I had used when I helped her move into housing the first time. I had spent years building her safety nets. She had spent years assuming they were permanent. I felt nothing. Not anger. Not triumph. Just empty. Meanwhile, Saphira started her real campaign where it mattered most to her. Online. She posted a picture on Instagram holding a glass of wine again, smirking at the camera as if nothing was happening. Caption: some people are great at pretending. Guess I learned from the best. She tagged me. That was the moment I realized Saphira wasn't just spiraling. She was trying to take me down publicly, predictably, like she always did. A former coworker even DM'd me. Hey, saw your sister's post. Is everything okay? And that was it. No explosion, no meltdown, just a quiet click inside me like a lock sliding open. A door I had been meaning to walk through for years. I didn't text Saphira. I didn't post anything. I didn't call anyone for advice. I reached out to the scholarship foundation Saphira had received funding from, the same one she got only after I wrote her a glowing letter of recommendation. My email was polite, professional, and clear. I explained that I needed to withdraw my support, attached a screenshot of the university withdrawal notice, and explained I could no longer support her participation because of major instability and misrepresentation. The foundation responded within hours. They were concerned and asked for more context. I gave it simply and clearly. By the next afternoon, Saphira's scholarship was revoked. No ceremony, no drama, just a small administrative update in a system somewhere. She found out almost instantly. 3 calls in a row ignored. Then a 4th. This time I answered. Her voice burst through the line, frantic, furious, panicked. You ruined my future. You're jealous. You always wanted to be better than me. You're being vindictive and everyone sees it. Why are you doing this to me? I let the silence settle for a full 5 seconds. Then I said simply, you did this. No. You threw wine on me at my wedding. she shouted. You mocked me for years, I said quietly. You've taken my help for granted. You treated my stability like it belonged to you. And I let it happen every time. Now I've stopped. She exhaled sharply. Okay, fine. What do you want? Money? A public apology? I can post something. Clarify everything. Is that what this is? A negotiation? No, I said. There is nothing you can offer me. You're not serious, she whispered. Amaris, I'm your sister, she said. Yeah, I said softly. That used to mean something. And I hung up. I felt a strange calm after that. Not happy, not angry, just calm. For the first time in my life, I was free from the weight of being the fixer, the helper, the one who always made sure everyone else's life ran smoothly. I realized that sometimes helping someone too much can hurt them as much as it helps them. I had learned the hard way that protecting someone from the consequences of their actions doesn't always make life easier for them. It makes life easier for me to ignore my own needs, my own limits, my own feelings. And for the first time, I wasn't ignoring them anymore. By Friday, her dorm eviction was official. I didn't know where she went. I didn't ask. I didn't care enough to follow her on social media or check up on her. It was like someone else's problem, not mine. Mom sent me lots and lots of messages, each one sad, angry, or begging me to fix things. Each one was worse than the last. It was like she was throwing emotional grenades at me and I had to catch them just like I always did. Then aunts and cousins joined in. They all sent me messages too. They said the same things over and over. Families are important. Meet in the middle. You are the stable one. We need you to make everything okay. Safira always looked up to me, they said. She couldn't even look at me when she threw wine in my face. That wasn't important to them. What mattered was that I fix everything, calm everyone down, and make life normal again. But something inside me had finally broken. I wasn't going back to being the person they wanted me to be. I wasn't going to be the quiet Amaris, the person who always swallowed her feelings, the person who quietly solved everyone's problems before anyone even asked. I wasn't going to be the family shock absorber anymore. Then my dad sent me a text. It said, "Do you want a relationship with your family or not?" A few years ago that question would have gutted me. I would have felt scared and sad and guilty all at once. I would have dropped everything and tried to make things right. But now I knew what it really meant. It wasn't a question. It was a demand. He meant, do you want us back? Then get back in line. Do what we want. Fix everything. Take responsibility for everyone. So I answered honestly. Not like this. He didn't reply. I didn't expect him to. By then I knew the shift in me wasn't temporary. I wasn't being emotional or reacting to a single fight. I had changed. I wasn't stepping back into my old role. And the person who was most terrified of that wasn't Safira. It was the whole family. Because when I stopped catching their emotional grenades, they realized the grenades were always theirs, not mine. By the first week after my wedding, the silence in my family wasn't peaceful. It wasn't calm. It was tactical and strategic. It was the kind of quiet you get when people aren't trying to solve a problem. They are just trying to get the problem person back in line. That person was me. And that's when I finally understood something I had avoided for years. My family didn't want reconciliation. They didn't want real solutions or fairness. They wanted to reset. They wanted the old Amaris back. The quiet banker who handled everything without complaining. The person who absorbed every problem Safira caused. The daughter who quietly took care of every crisis, every mess, every bill before anyone even felt it. Safira might have thrown the wine at me, but the whole family built the table she threw it from. They built a system where I was the one who caught all the chaos, who fixed everything, who kept life smooth for everyone else. Then the cousin brigade arrived. Between Wednesday night and Friday morning, I received 11 messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. People who hadn't even commented on my engagement photos were suddenly acting like we shared a childhood bedroom. Every message had the same sugary, sticky tone that families use when they want to manipulate you but make it sound nice. "Hey Amaris, long time no see. Just checking in. I heard there was a misunderstanding at the wedding. You know Safira can get emotional. Stress affects people differently. You're the stable one. We're counting on you to pull this back together." That last line flipped a switch in me. You're the stable one. Of course. That was the role. That was the assignment. And they were furious that I had suddenly stopped stepping onto the stage. I wasn't performing anymore and they hated it. Mom escalated next. She sent a photo of Saphira's old acceptance letter, as if that somehow meant I was still responsible for paying for her life. Then she sent a paragraph about family bonds and sisters forgiving sisters. Conveniently, she never mentioned the wine or the public humiliation. I didn't reply, so she tried another approach. She sent a direct message to Kale, my husband. "I'm worried Amaris is being controlling," she wrote. "This isn't normal. Please don't let her isolate herself." Kale read it aloud while brushing his teeth. His eyebrows shot up. He spat some foam into the sink and wheezed. "Controlling? Really?" Then he put on a mock-serious voice. "Sweetheart, should I be concerned? Is she going to forbid me from watching Netflix or breathing?" I laughed. Kale laughed. But inside, a small bitterness prickled. My mom hadn't sent me a message like that in years, but now she treated my husband like he needed protection from me. I sat down on the edge of the tub. "She's not trying to fix this," I murmured. "She's trying to shame me for not playing my role." Kale nodded. "Then stop playing it," he said. Later that night, I texted my mom just one sentence. "If Saphira apologizes directly to Kale, I'll consider talking." Saphira apologized to my husband for humiliating me? Never going to happen. And I think Mom knew it. There was no reply. Not that night. Not the next. Not ever. April 6th was when the heartbreak happened. My dad texted me privately. "Do you want a relationship with your family or not?" No explanation. No context. No softness. No interest in how I felt. Just a line in the sand. If I didn't clean up Saphira's mess, I was the one ending things. If I didn't sacrifice myself again, I would walk away. If I didn't forgive instantly, I didn't love them. But I knew exactly what the question really meant. What he meant was, "Do you want a relationship with your family the way it currently functions?" And the answer was easy. "Not like this." He didn't reply. Over the weekend, Kale and I were invited to dinner at his parents' house. Their home was quiet and warm. Love didn't feel like a transaction there. Boundaries weren't treated like betrayal. We sat around their kitchen table, the smell of roasted garlic filling the air, and told them everything. Not dramatically. Not accusingly. Just truthfully. Kale's mom reached across the table and gently squeezed my hand. "Sweetheart," she said, "people show you who they are when they think you owe them." Kale's dad leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. "Well," he said, "sounds like you're finally done playing the role they wrote for you." I blinked. "Role?" I asked. He nodded. "Every family has one. Saphira's was chaos. Yours was the net." Then he asked something nobody in my family had ever asked me before. "So, Amaris, what do you want to do next?" It hit me harder than I expected. I had been so focused on stopping Saphira's free fall that I hadn't paused to imagine my own next step. For my entire adult life, every time something went wrong for Saphira, I thought, what should I do? But for the first time ever, someone was asking, what do you choose? And that was a completely different question. Over the next few days, I noticed something strange. Mom wasn't sending me panic texts every hour. Dad wasn't calling to negotiate or lecture. Saphira wasn't blowing up my phone. Even my cousins had quieted down. At first, I thought maybe they had finally backed off. Then my aunt texted me. "We don't know what happened, but freezing someone's life like this is not okay. He made a mistake. This is extreme." Extreme. No one had ever used that word when I paid Saphira's rent for 3 months while she figured things out. I bailed her out of that pyramid scheme disaster. I covered her car rental after she drove uninsured. She insulted Kale at my graduation. She called me insecure and lucky and a dozen other cuts disguised as jokes. She walked into my wedding wearing bridal white. But the moment I stopped paying, suddenly I was a monster. That's when I realized this wasn't about consequences. This was about access. Access to me. Access to my income. Access to my emotional labor. Access to my stability. And when I locked the door, they didn't mourn the relationship. They mourned the loss of the benefits. Then something happened that I hadn't expected. On Monday morning, I called Saphira's academic advisor again, not as a sister but just as a formality. "Has she applied for reinstatement?" I asked. "No," the advisor said gently. "She hasn't even tried. She's spiraling and hiding." If my parents had known she hadn't re-enrolled, they would have been banging down my door again. But they hadn't said a word, which meant she still hadn't told them the truth. That's when I realized Saphira wasn't done hitting the ground. She hadn't even found it yet. And I wasn't about to cushion her landing this time. On Tuesday morning just past 8 a.m. someone knocked on our door. Not a frantic knock. Not a family knock. You know, the kind, loud, desperate, rapid fire, like they are trying to break the silence along with the wood. This was a single hesitant knock. Kale opened our bedroom door slightly and called down the hall. "Amaris, someone's here." I slipped on a sweater and walked downstairs. Half expecting my mom. Half fearing Saphira. Fully bracing for impact. But it wasn't either of them. It was Zevian. Saphira's ex. The one she had publicly torched a year ago. He looked terrible. Thin. Hollow-eyed. Shoulders curved inward like life had been pressing down on him since the last time I'd seen him. Even his voice sounded frayed at the edges. "Hey," he said, offering a tiny sheepish nod. I'm not here for drama." Kale stepped behind me, not aggressively, but with that quiet, protective stance he always defaulted to when he sensed my family hovering near. Zevian swallowed. I ran into Saphira. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. He glanced behind him, making sure no one else was listening, then reached into his pocket. "She told me she needed to tell someone and I didn't know who else to come to." He unfolded a piece of paper and handed it to me. A printout from a clinic. Plain, unassuming, just a few lines. "Pregnancy confirmed. 6 weeks." The refrigerator hum filled the silence between us. He said, "She said you were still the only person who ever really took care of her. And she knows she ruined it." I sat down slowly at the kitchen table. The paper trembled in my hand, but my fingers were steady. Saphira pregnant. Zevian wasn't finished. "She didn't ask me for anything," he said. "She wasn't trying to twist it. She just said she needed to tell someone." I stared at the pregnancy confirmation. 6 weeks. The wedding had been barely over a week ago. A wave of emotion rolled through me, but it wasn't anger. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't even sadness. It was something else. Relief. Not relief that she was struggling. I wouldn't wish this on anyone. But relief that I finally understood the full picture. This wasn't about tuition or rent or scholarships anymore. This wasn't about spilled wine or white dresses or screaming voicemails. My sister's life wasn't cracking. It was collapsing. And for the first time ever, she wasn't trying to drag me into the rubble with her. Zevian lingered awkwardly. "I just thought you'd want to know," he said. Kale thanked him, shook his hand and gently closed the door. We stood together in the quiet, the early morning sunlight creeping across the hardwood floor. I sat back down at the kitchen table and unfolded the page again. Pregnancy confirmed. 6 weeks. Kale sat across from me. He didn't say, "We need to help her." He didn't say, "You should call your parents." He didn't say, "This changes everything." He just reached out and lightly touched the paper. "What are you feeling?" he asked quietly. I breathed in and realized something strange and unexpectedly freeing. I didn't feel responsible. Not for her pregnancy. Not for her eviction. Not for her scholarship loss. Not for her unraveling. For the first time in my life, my sister's crisis wasn't instantly transforming into my crisis. The drawer where I had placed the letters, the lists Saphira wrote, the messages she never spoke aloud, felt like the right place for this paper too. So that's where I put it. Folded neatly. Filed away. Not acted on. Not avoided out of cruelty. Avoided because for once it wasn't my weight to carry. I didn't tell my parents. Not out of spite. Not out of secrecy. Simply because it wasn't my job to explain Saphira's life anymore. For 30 years I had been the interpreter, the mediator, the translator of chaos. Mom would call crying. Dad would call lecturing. Saphira would call demanding. And I would clean up the mess before they even finished describing it. This time I didn't pick up the phone. Not because I didn't care. But because caring doesn't always mean intervening. Sometimes caring is knowing when to step back. Sometimes love is letting the consequences be the teacher you never could. Saphira wasn't reaching out to manipulate me anymore. She wasn't reaching out to demand or blame or spin a story. She was just trying to breathe through the collapse. And for the first time I finally understood. People like Saphira don't change when you catch them. They change when you step aside and let the ground teach them what you never could. I poured myself a glass of water, stared out the window at the early morning sky, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Light. Unburdened. Free. That was the last weight I put down.